Pokemon Diamond, Platinum and Pearl gave us a whopping 22 new evolutions to existing Pokemon, many of which were initially single or double stage Pokemon like Ipom and Sneasel, often viewed as weak or completely undesirable competitively, primarily because of their low base stats. Not only did the new evolutions breathe more life and flavor into these existing Pokemon, their pre-evolutions were also now eligible to hold the Eviolite item. But how successful were these new evolutions over their 18 years of existence, and how have they impacted the competitive Pokemon scene? We'll be uncovering the answers in part 1 of ranking all of Sinnoh's new evolutions. One evolution that was a major letdown to many was Licky, the new evolved form of Lickitung. Personally, I'm quite fond of its design, but its battle prowess is very lacking. As covered in the bulky normal type trope video, Licky bears close similarities to the many tanky normal types that existed before it, both in terms of stats and usage. Its most optimal moveset is a generic Stall set with Toxic, Seismic Toss, Protect and the ever so unreliable Wish for Recovery, while also holding the Leftovers item. It found itself outclassed by superior defensive Pokemon like Blissey, Quagsire or Clefable. Its end-use status on its debut was then revoked as power creep set in, landing it a home in the ZU tier as a premier defensive wall there. Interestingly, Licky could also run a unique offensive set with Belly Drum or Sword Stance for setup, as well as Stab Return, Knockoff and Earthquake for coverage. Sadly, this Pokemon has next to nothing going for it, although TCG Pocket players might now disagree with the recent introduction of Licky EX, although we won't be taking that into account. I'm not sure what Game Freak's obsession is with giving defensive Pokemon abhorrent defensive typings, but Probopass is a key example of this. Bearing both the Rock and Steel types means you're now 4 times weak to common offensive types Fighting and Ground. Probopass' best set is as a Hazard Setter and a Slow Pivot, basically a downgraded version of Fortress due to its typing. It can run Stealth Rock, Body Press to hit hard, with its Colossal defense stat, Volt Switch for pivoting, and Thunder Wave I guess. Probopass fails to set itself apart from its fellow hazard setting Pokemon, and its abilities don't justify its usage at all. Sturdy allows it to endure a hit, but so what? It's not going to serve any long-term value apart from getting rocks up. In fact, it doesn't even get spikes. Magnet Pull could be useful to trap opposing steel types, but Probopass is just so passive. It probably won't be able to do much. And Earth Power from a base 75 special attack won't even tickle most steel types. That aside, I think taking an existing Pokemon, making it bigger and giving it facial hair was a step in the right direction aesthetically. Good work, Game Freak. It breaks my heart to rank one of the most beloved Pokemon this low, but truthfully the competitive scene has never been forgiving to Glaceon. Despite its tremendous base 130 special attack and inherently good offensive pure ice typing, Glaceon has struggled to see any competitive use. In early generations, it suffers from a lack of good coverage moves, forcing it to heavily rely on hidden power ground or grass, which doesn't seem too bad at first. However, the biggest drawback that could not be overlooked was Glaceon's terrible stat distribution. Base 65 speed is simply abysmal for a hard-hitting special attacker, forcing Glaceon to run a Choice Scarf at almost all times. Instead of a decent speed stat, Glaceon has semi-decent physical and special bulk, which does not complement its playstyle, as well as its pure ice typing. Ice is one of the worst defensive types in the game, suffering from 4 weaknesses and only a single resistance to itself. A base 100 speed stat would be enough to elevate Glaceon's choice spec stats, from ZU status to RE at the very least. At number 18 is the other evolution introduced in Generation 4, Leafeon. Just like its ice-type counterpart, Leafeon was not a strong contender in many top players' teams. It was actually pretty good in its debut generation, ranking in the UU tier as a Life Orb Sword Stance attacker, with Stab Leaf Blade and Double Edge, as well as Synthesis for recovery. It could easily outspeed and break through prominent defensive walls like Dawnfang, Milotic and Slowbro. Grass was not the best typing defensively, but nobody complained about its base 130 defense stat. Although its mediocre HP and special defense meant a single Flamethrowers, Ice Beam or Sludge Bomb would be more than enough to take Leafeon out. Things seemed to improve for Leafeon in Generation 5 when it received the ability Chlorophyll, doubling its speed in the sun and making it even more fearsome as a Sword Stance attacker. Additionally, Leafeon could operate as a baton passer, transferring its raised attack stat to another Pokemon in the face of a bad matchup. As power creep set in later generations, however, Leafeon fell to the ZU tier where it currently resides as a Sun Sweeper, although not as optimal as it was in its earlier days. If there's anything good Magmortar has done, it's granting its pre-evolution Magma the ability to hold the Eviolite item. I'm just kidding. Despite being outclassed by superior fire-type special attackers like Houndoom and Moltres, Magmortar is a frightening presence in lower tiers like PU and NU. Although it's very susceptible to hazards because of its pure fire typing, Magmortar can hit exceptionally hard with its base 125 special attack and an arsenal of solid coverage moves like Thunderbolt, Hidden Power Grass and Focus Blast. Physical attackers also risk getting burned when making contact with Magmortar, thanks to its ability Flame Body, and Magmortar makes a name for itself as a notable wall breaker in the lower tiers. In recent generations, it could use the Heavy Duty Boots to remove its jarring weakness to hazards, as well as the new ground type move Scorching Sands for the additional chance to burn enemies. but a base 125 special attack does not hit as hard in a generation with Pokemon like Fluttermane or Boost Energy Iron Valiant, and its speed is truly what dragged it down. Magmortar's counterpart Electivire has had slightly more success in its career, which is partially thanks to its excellent ability Motor Drive, that grants it an immunity to electric type moves and raises its speed by 1 stage. Electivire has good synergy with flying or water types like Gyarados, which can pivot out safely to Electivire on a Thunder or Thunderbolt, granting it a speed boost and making it possibly the fastest thing on the field at that time. In its debut generation, Electivire was relatively successful as a mixed attacker, running moves like Cross Chop, Earthquake, Thunderbolt and Ice Punch. Unfortunately, Electivire was too heavily reliant on Motor Drive for the essential speed boost, whereas other physical attackers like Infernape were inherently fast and did not require a stat raise to unleash devastating damage immediately. Due to a lack of strong physical, electric type moves, Electivire had to resort to running mixed stats most of the time, limiting its potential as a physical wall breaker. This changed in Generation 5 when it received Wild Charge, allowing it to output powerful stat damage with the drawback of taking some recoil. However, Electivire was still held back by its previous weaknesses, its vulnerability to entry hazards, over-reliance on its ability, and its very average stats. Its decline in usage sent it down to the pits of ZU, where it still resides to this day. Taking the 15th spot is Mismagius, the new evolution of Misdreavus. Mismagius boasts outstanding speed, special attack, and decent special bulk. It solidified itself as a top threat in OU and UU in the early days of Diamond and Pearl, rocking a fast sweeper set with Nasty Plot, Stab Shadow Ball, Thunderbolt, and Hidden Power Fire. Mismagius posed as a key threat to frail Pokemon and even common defensive walls like Steelix or Milotic. Alternatively, players who aim to deny hazards or setup could use Mismagius as the lead Pokemon with Taunt, Will-O-Wisp, Destiny Bond, and Shadow Ball, Power Gem or Thunderbolt for damage. Its ability Levitate also blessed it with a valuable immunity to ground-type moves, aside from its original immunities to fighting and normal, allowing Mismagius to switch in safely on one of these attacks and even block an incoming Rapid Spin, assisting the team by preserving hazards. Sadly, power creep was not kind to Mismagius. Constant metagame shifts meant that Mismagius' once excellent stats were now insufficient for upper tiers like OU, UU, and even RU. You might have noticed that a recurring theme for many aforementioned Pokemon's downfall is power creep, and since Game Freak rarely buffs older Pokemon, it seems nearly all Pokemon will fall out of viability within a matter of time if this phenomenon persists. You could make an argument that the next Pokemon should be ranked much lower, but I think its relevance in both singles and VGC, albeit fleeting, is still admirable. Compared to Dusclops, Dusknoir was repurposed as a physical attacker in addition to a tanky defensive wall that its pre-evolution was. Dusknoir can ensure its longevity with the Leftovers item and access to the move Pain Split, sharing its HP with a healthier target when weakened. It lacked any good stab options unfortunately, since no strong Ghost-type physical moves could capitalize off its base 100 attack at the time, leading Dusknoir to simply run the elemental punches for coverage, as well as Shadow Sneak for priority. Its Ghost typing came with the benefit of blocking Rapid Spin and safe switch-ins on fighting and normal type moves, similar to Mismagius. Unfortunately, Dusknoir found itself outclassed by its own pre-evolution, which could now raise its already superb defenses with the Eviolite item, making it by far the better, more preferable defensive tank. In VGC, Dusknoir could actually function as a consistent trick room setter, its colossal bulk ensuring it got the job done before fainting. But there was nothing Dusknoir could do that its now superior pre-evolution Dusclops couldn't, and players opted to run Eviolite Dusclops as the new and improved trick room setter in VGC. Ambipomp's presence in the competitive scene has never been too overwhelming, but it was nothing to be ashamed of. Debuting in the UU tier of Generation 4, Ambipomp was scored a quick and versatile lead, and its frailty was not much of a liability as it could safely pivot out with U-turn. A base 100 attack stat is not too shabby. Stab Return or Double Edge coupled with a Silk Scarf can hit tremendously hard, and Ambipomp also possesses one of the greatest support moves in Pokemon history, Fake Out. Crippling an opponent for an entire turn with an increased priority, even if just for a singular turn, is often amazing enough to justify a Pokemon's usage in VGC or doubles. In singles, Ambipomp could run Fake Out for a little bit more chip damage, as well as Low Kick for Steel types, Pursuit for Ghost types, and Stab Return or U-turn. In addition to this, its ability Technician amplifies the damage on moves base 60 power and below by 1.5 times, meaning each individual strike from moves like Triple Axle and Beat Up would receive a corresponding boost in damage, hence Ambipomp's competence. Sadly, Ambipomp usage has been on the decline ever since the introduction of team previews in Pokemon Showdown, denying it of that integral element of surprise that it once relied on as a lead Pokemon, and a base 100 attacks that just was not enough to keep up with the volatile metagame. One might look at Frostlass's stats and recall in disgust, but this Pokemon actually has had a niche in Ubers of all places as a reliable spike setter. Despite not being as fast as Deoxys Speed or as tanky as Fortress, Frostlass Ghost typing meant that, you already know, Rapid Spin Denial. A Focus Sash would overlook its poor defenses and allow it to endure hit, meaning Frostlass could go for additional damage or Destiny Bond to potentially take down an enemy with it. Funnily enough, Frostlass was banned in Gen 4 OU because of its sole ability Snow Cloak, which raised its evasiveness in the snow. The ban affected all evasion-oriented abilities for fairness purposes, which unfortunately included Frostlass' only ability, making it entirely unusable in OU. Perhaps the previous ban could be revoked and have a complex ban implemented in its place, rectifying the previous ban by legalizing Pokemon with Snow Cloak or Sand Veil as their only ability, or simply banning the combination of Snow Cloak and Hail. Honchkrow has been a brilliant physical wall breaker since its release. Base 125 attack was often enough to secure easy KOs on weaker Pokemon, and Life Orb Honchkrow was capable of unleashing collateral damage with Stab Brave Bird, Superpower, and even Heat Wave on mixed sets. This fearsome bird could threaten Psychic or Ghost types attempting to switch out with Stab Pursuit, making it all the more terrifying. Honchkrow's awkward base 71 speed stat meant that it was fish in a barrel for faster Pokemon. That is, if it didn't get stabbed, Sucker Punch. Dark and Flying is also a potent type combination offensively, and not many things could switch in or out safely when Honchkrow was on the field. Its hidden ability Moxie also grants it an attack raise for each kill it secured, making Honchkrow an even better late game cleaner and sweeper. Defensively, Flying type cancels Dark's existing weaknesses to Fighting and Bug, the two types complementing each other perfectly, and making Honchkrow even better as a Pokemon. That's all for part 1 of ranking Sinnoh's new evolutions, and be sure to tune in for part 2 where we crack the top 10. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed because that helps me out a lot, and thanks for watching. Bye!